Hey guys, it's Michael Demagistris here from Polperro Winery. I'm here today at the farmhouse with this stunning organic produce from the Polperro farm, and I'm going to create a dish. And the dish I'd like to create today is brown butter gnocchi with sage, pine mushroom and lemon. So let's get cooking. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is you want to preheat your oven. So I'm going to preheat mine to about 200 degrees. Okay, the next step then is our potatoes. So the potatoes I'm using today, I'm going to be using russet. But you can use a few different varieties of potatoes. You want to find a nice floury potato because that's going to give, I guess, your gnocchi the best result. So I've just got some foil here and I'll line it out just in front of me. As you can see too, they're nice square sheets. Again, I haven't wasted too much foil. So place it all in the center and just using my olive oil, we just want to put a little drizzle. Not too much, this is just to coat the potato and again give it that little bit of flavour. Okay, next, a little bit of pink salt, just to season. Again, not too much, because in the recipe we also have salt to still add. So again, when you're doing this, the main importance is to make sure that you get a really nice tight seal, because we're sort of looking to steam the potato inside. Now this is quite a little bit different to the normal gnocchi where people will boil them. I like to put in foil because I think that, again, I can add a little bit of olive oil, I can get a little bit more flavour into it. But then again, I find that it just gives the gnocchi a better flavour. Okay, so we'll get those into the oven. All right, so while my potatoes are cooking, I'm going to start getting all my other ingredients ready. So the pine mushrooms, I just want to thinly slice. So again, these mushrooms, lucky enough, have been foraged around the Mornington Peninsula. So just thinly slice. Again, it doesn't need to be too fancy. So probably 1 clove of garlic would be enough for this recipe. I like a little bit of garlic in there because it obviously gives it a little bit more sort of body to the dish. So I'll lightly crush it and then again, just thinly slicing. Next we'll do our parsley. So we just want to pick our parsley. Again, not too much. This is more just for garnish. And at the same time, we'll also do the sage. Now this is going to be really beautiful in the dish because again, we're going to start caramelizing some butter. And then again, throwing in that sage, it'll just sort of release a lot of oil in the sage itself and just sort of flavour up that sauce that we want to sort of bind the whole dish together. Okay, so the potatoes are ready to go. But what I did is, after 45 minutes, I had a bit of a check. They seemed to be ready. All as I did was just get a sharp knife, poke it through. It went through quite easily. So all as I did, open up the foil, probably cooked it for about another 10 to 15 minutes, just until they dried out a little bit more. And pulled them out and let them sit aside to rest for about another probably 15 to 20 minutes. And all I'm trying to do there is cool the potato down enough so that I can handle it a lot easier. But again, you don't want to cool it down too much because otherwise it becomes a little bit too hard, I guess, when we start to roll the mix together. So let's have a look. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to quickly cut them. And just want to cut them again in nice little pieces. Now you're going to need a drum sieve or a ricer. Now if you don't have a drum sieve or a ricer, you can just use a fork. If you're going to be using a fork, you need to make sure that you peel your potatoes beforehand. I won't need to because again, the sieve is going to collect, I guess, the skin. So just to make it a bit easy for myself. So if you have a look here, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use my hand. And the reason why I use my hand is I find it a lot easier to, I guess, to get through the sieve. Again, everyone make sure we washed our hands 100%. So, and I'm just going to lightly press. And as you can see, the skin's staying up the top and the potato's falling straight through, okay? Okay, great. So I've passed off my potatoes and now I'm just going to have my flour, my egg, Parmesan cheese and a little bit of salt. So this is a lot easier for me. I'm actually just doing mine on the bench at home. It's a nice little marbled surface, so it's really good for me to work on. We'll season with salt. Again, this might seem like a lot of salt, but trust me, it definitely needs it. We'll add the egg yolk. And again, just the Parmesan cheese. And this is one of my favorites, the Parmesan grana. This has a really beautiful flavor. And again, just this gnocchi, adding that little bit of Parmesan cheese just gives that extra cheesiness. Now what you need to do is you need to bring it together with your hands. And again, this job is going to get messy. It's good for the kids at this stage. If they want to jump in and have a bit of a go, I think this is a great one for them to do as well. Like I said, slowly bring it all together. And then once we bring it all together, we want to roll it into one round mass. Now the idea is we want to make sure we get those ingredients through our gnocchi, but again, that we're not going to overwork our dough, okay? So I like to do a little bit of a trick. Is once I get my gnocchi into a little ball, I'm using the back of my palm, and I'm just going to run it across the bench, okay? And this is just sort of making sure that that flour is getting incorporated into the mix. So I've just cut this into a few pieces, and now I'm going to start to roll it. Now again, quite important, don't use too much flour. Using a 00 flour, so one of the best flours to use when you're making gnocchi. And again, let's just roll it on our bench. I'm just rolling it into like a long rope shape. And again, you can cut this any size that you want. I'm going to cut mine into more little pieces. I think it sort of presents a little bit better, and I think it's got a better mouthfeel as well. Because then again, you're not having too much sort of potato in your mouth. Okay, so as I'm using my knife, I'm just going to cut little pieces off, and I'm just going to flick it away. And we'll probably get around about maybe 20, 30 pieces out of this. Now this recipe yields quite a bit. It probably makes enough for around about maybe 2 to 3 meals. So again, such a good recipe, you can use it for so many different applications. Cool, so now I'm going to start cooking the gnocchi. Again, I've got the water that's come to the boil. And all I've done is I've put the gnocchi on a plate. It just makes it easier when you're going to put it in. You can just dump it all in one go, okay? So again, I'll just chuck my gnocchi in. Quick tip when you're cooking the gnocchi, when it floats to the top, you know it's ready. Okay, so as you can start to see here, they're all coming to the top, and I want to fish them out. Now you don't want to cook these for too long in here. We're basically just blanching them, okay? And I'm going to put them on a dry tea towel that I have. Now it's quite important that you add them to a dry tea towel because we want to make sure that the gnocchi is really dry, because later on we're going to fry them, and if we don't get all the water off, it's just going to spit everywhere, okay? So now we're going to pan fry the gnocchi. So a little bit of oil. Again, not too much because we don't want to make our gnocchi greasy. And again, I'm just going to throw in probably around about half of these. And again, a really good tip is just to make sure that you have this pan nice and hot. Again, not too hot that we're going to burn our gnocchi. It's got to be sort of an in-between temperature. And like I said before, make sure the gnocchi is super dry, because if it's not, the gnocchi will stick to your pan and it just won't caramelize up really nicely. So I'll give it a little bit of a shake. And we're just trying to look for that, as I said before, that sort of beautiful caramelization. And again, with the Parmesan cheese in there and the egg, and again, this recipe you'll find there's a little bit more egg than normal, and the egg is more helping it, again, caramelize up and give it that really nice flavor. So a couple of little shakes. Again, you don't want to start to burn them, so temperature is quite important. And when you think you've got the desired, I guess, color, then take them off. So it's time to caramelize my butter. So I'm going to cut a little bit of butter off. Roughly around about probably 50 to 100 grams of butter. And again, get our pan sort of nice and warm. And I'm going to slowly add my butter in. Now I like to keep my pan more at a medium heat, because if you heat it too high and you throw your butter in straight away, the butter will just burn. There's nothing better than that smell of, butter browning, the solids coming out. It's so delicious. Sort of adds that little bit of nuttiness to our gnocchi that we need. You just got to catch it at the right point. And again, you'll know when it's ready because the butter generally sort of bubbles up. And once it's done that, I'm just going to throw in my sage, okay? And it'll start to crackle. Just be careful not to get yourself. And again, we probably only want to do that for about 20 seconds, okay? It's just sort of getting the flavor. We don't want to burn that butter at this stage. Once you're happy with that, tip it out and put your pan back on. I'm just going to add a little bit more butter again. Okay, making sure I'm not getting those solids in there. And we're going to start to caramelize these mushrooms. So I'm going to add my mushrooms. And I'm going to add a little bit of the garlic as well. You don't want to cook your mushrooms down too much. They start to become all soggy. So when I think that they're nearly ready, I'm going to add a tiny bit of black pepper, seasoning, and some pink salt. Now again, don't add too much salt because the gnocchi's already been heavily seasoned. Also the brown butter adds a little bit of saltiness to the dish too. Okay, now that's ready. I'm just going to put it aside and I'm ready to assemble. Let's grab our gnocchi and we'll add the gnocchi in. You want to add our roasted pine nuts, just a little sprinkle. This beautiful brown butter with the sage. And we'll just give it a toss, okay? Just making sure that everything comes together. Okay, it's time to serve. So this is smelling really good. We've got all those flavors that we want with the roasted mushroom, the toasted pine nuts, you know, that sort of sage, the garlic. Just beautiful. Great, so now we'll just grab this Parmesan cheese. And again, give it a lot of love. Again, not too much because we've already had Parmesan in the original recipe. I'm going to finish with a little bit of parsley. And this is probably one of my most favourite ingredients. It's nasturtium. Now I think it just adds that little bit of pepperiness to the dish. We did add a little bit of black pepper originally, but I think this just finishes off the dish really nice. So here's the finished dish. It looks and smells absolutely amazing. And one of the things I remember as a kid growing up, cooking gnocchi with my grandma. And this brings me back to those memories. I think she'd be very proud. So thanks guys for cooking along with me today. I hope you've had a lot of fun and I'm gonna get stuck in.